Capricorn, the Hanged Man appears when more effort is no longer producing more clarity. You may be accustomed to solving uncertainty through discipline, structure, and another round of work. This week, the wiser move may be to stop forcing the angle that has already shown you its limits. A pause can be strategic without becoming surrender. Your card for August 5th through August 11th is the Hanged Man. The central message is that progress sometimes requires releasing the method that once proved your strength. The shadow expression would be treating delay as failure and pushing harder because stopping feels like losing authority. The wiser expression is creating deliberate space, questioning assumptions, and allowing a new perspective to change the plan before action resumes. This is not a prediction that one literal event must occur. It is a decision-making lens for recognizing the pattern when it appears. On August 6th, Venus enters Libra and moves through your 10th house of career, responsibility, reputation, and the direction of your public life. Venus brings attention to attraction, values, harmony, and the quality of exchange. Through the lens of the Hanged Man, this transit asks you to notice what becomes more appealing when you are acting from self-respect rather than habit. Let beauty and connection support the lesson of the card, but do not use harmony to avoid the truth the card is revealing. On August 9th, Mercury enters Leo and activates your 8th house of intimacy, trust, shared resources, endings, and emotional transformation. Mercury changes the way information moves, how decisions are framed, and what needs to be spoken or understood. For Capricorn, this can help translate the message of the Hanged Man into language and practical choices. Use the transit to ask better questions, clarify assumptions, and give the central lesson of the reading a form you can act on. On August 11th, Mars enters Cancer and moves into your 7th house of partnership, reciprocity, agreements, and one-to-one relationships. Mars brings drive, friction, courage, and the desire to act. Its energy can help you implement the lesson of the Hanged Man, but it may also tempt you to rush before the emotional meaning is understood. Direct the energy toward one constructive action in this area rather than allowing irritation or urgency to choose for you. The deeper invitation of the Hanged Man is not to perform the card's most familiar keyword. It is to notice the choice beneath it. For Capricorn, that choice may appear in the space between instinct and response. You may already understand this situation intellectually, but the week asks whether your behavior reflects that understanding. Watch for the moment when an old reflex offers immediate relief. That moment is not a failure, it is the doorway into a different decision. Also notice what you are tempted to make this card mean about your identity. The Hanged Man describes an energy and a lesson, not a permanent definition of who you are. You can work with its message without turning it into a verdict. The most useful question is not, "Why am I like this?" It is, "What response would make this pattern less powerful by the end of the week?" In love, the Hanged Man asks you to see the relationship from the other side without erasing your own needs. Mars entering your 7th house can intensify attraction, conflict, and demands for action. Before issuing a verdict, ask what changes when you stop defending your position long enough to understand the pattern. Perspective is not agreement, it is information. At work, Venus entering your 10th house can improve professional relationships, visibility, and the presentation of your work. Yet the Hanged Man suggests that one career question may not be ready for immediate execution. Use the pause to examine whether the goal is still yours or simply the next respectable step. Mercury entering your 8th house supports deeper review of shared money, debt, taxes, contracts, and financial dependencies. Read the details before committing. The Hanged Man may reveal that a short-term sacrifice has value only if it serves a clearly chosen long-term outcome. Do not endure indefinitely without revisiting the agreement. For health and energy, stop measuring every pause as lost productivity. The body may need a different rhythm, posture, or recovery strategy. Gentle stretching, slower movement, and moments without input can reveal tension you have normalized. Listening now may prevent a louder interruption later. Wednesday is for stopping one unproductive push. Create space before deciding what replaces it. Thursday, Venus enters Libra and your 10th house. Improve presentation, diplomacy, or professional relationships without making a rushed commitment. Friday asks you to examine the cost of being right. What becomes possible if the goal matters more than defending the original method? Saturday favors literal perspective change. Leave the usual environment, take a different route, or discuss the issue with someone outside the pattern. Sunday, Mercury enters Leo and your 8th house. Review a contract, shared obligation, or emotionally charged financial subject in detail. Monday is for choosing what not to force. Let one answer remain incomplete while you gather better information. Tuesday, Mars enters Cancer and your 7th house. A partner or opponent may push for action. Respond deliberately rather than allowing pressure to choose the timing. Here are your 3 journal prompts. Where is the lesson of the Hanged Man already visible in my life, even if I have not named it? What would change if I practiced this week's central truth, that progress sometimes requires releasing the method that once proved your strength, in one concrete situation? Which response would allow me to respect both my feelings and my future? Your weekly guidance is this: choose one unresolved issue and write 3 interpretations of it: the view you currently hold, the view of someone affected by it, and the view you might have 1 year from now. Do not decide immediately. Leave the page overnight. The next day, underline the assumption that appears in all 3 versions and test whether it is actually true. Do not use the exercise to create another standard you can fail. Use it to collect evidence. The purpose is to make the message of the Hanged Man visible in behavior, because insight becomes trustworthy when it changes one real decision. Capricorn, this week does not require a dramatic reinvention. It asks for one honest correction repeated consistently. You may notice that the old pattern still speaks loudly, but volume is not authority. Let the card become a lens rather than a label. Let the astrology provide timing and context rather than certainty. Most of all, let your next action become proof that awareness is already changing the way you move. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. The Hanged Man can be uncomfortable because it removes the reassurance of visible effort. Yet waiting and passivity are not the same. A deliberate pause can include research, observation, recovery, and the release of a false deadline. Ask what information becomes available only when you stop defending the existing plan. You may discover that the obstacle is not blocking the path, it is revealing that the path requires redesign. Your authority is not diminished when you revise a method. It becomes more credible when results matter more than attachment to the original strategy. Choose a 24-hour period in which you do not push the unresolved issue forward. Observe what changes in your thinking when effort is removed from the equation. The answer that appears after pressure decreases may be more useful than the answer produced by another round of disciplined force. Your affirmation for this week is, I can pause without losing momentum, and I can change perspective without abandoning my purpose. Carry that with you through August 11th. Subscribe so your next weekly reading is waiting for you. Trust the timing. The stars have spoken.